Thank you all. Welcome to the August 9th Mayor and Council meeting. Mayor Henry will not be here tonight, so I will be presiding. Also, Council Member Zapata will not be here this evening on an excused absence. Congrats to all parents, students, and teachers on the first day of school. I know it was a a lot today, but congrats on that. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance by Scouts and 431 and 432, Troops 431 and 432. I believe Elizabeth's going to lead us in that. Will you come to the front and lead us in the pledge? Bring everybody.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Scouts, for leading us in the pledge this evening. On to the first item, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Councilman Tizer,
Second.
second by Councilman Wilsey. All in favor? And that's unanimous. All right, next items on the agenda, community development, presented by Liaison Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Item number 1, approval of CU 2021-1518, 720 Grimes Bridge Road, the Cottage School, removal and revision of prior conditions. The applicant is requesting a deferral until after closing in October 2021. The applicant requested a deferral from the May 10th, 2021 Mayor and Council meeting to the June 14th, 2021 Mayor and Council meeting. Applicant requested a deferral from the June 14th, 2021 Mayor and Council meeting to the August 9th, 2021 Mayor and Council meeting. This is presented by Ms. Steibel.
Good evening. The applicant is requesting a deferral. As we indicated, they are looking to sell the property, and the person selling the home has asked them to wait until after the October 15th, 2021 closing. So the applicant is requesting a deferral until after that date. There are 2 council meetings after that, October 25th, which is the 4th Monday in October, or November 8th, which is the normal zoning night.
Do we have any questions from council? Anyone in the public here to speak on this? Yes, sir, in the back. Please approach the podium, sir. Thank you. If you'll give your name and address, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Konstantinos Apostolakos. My address is 385 Grimes Bridge Road, and I live across the street from the Cottage School. And I'm just, and forgive me if this isn't the forum for it, I'm trying to understand what exactly they're trying to get done there. Everything that happens across the street directly impacts my property. It is very difficult to live across the street from that school, and as they expand, it just makes everything around my property much more difficult, from traffic, trying to get in and out of my property. There's no way to, and then there's a Swift school down the street, which we're not even talking about. But I can just stand there on my driveway trying to get out, and I get no assistance. There's somebody there directing their traffic. And I'm trying to understand what exactly they're trying to get done. And also, the water displacement has been horrendous off that property, and it's destructive to my property. So every time they expand, I get much more water onto my property. And I've consulted with City Hall, and it's very Byzantine exactly how water displacement gets resolved. So I'm trying to understand exactly what they're trying to get done here, what consideration have they given to what happens to my property across the street.
Thank you, sir. We'll have, if you'll contact community development, tonight we're looking at deferral on this, and they can answer some questions for you. We'll get you their information.
I appreciate it.
We'll take care of it. Thank you, sir. All right, any more public comment? All right, back to council. Any comments? Do I have a motion?
Yes, I'm prepared to make a motion to defer item number 1, approval of CU 2021-1518 to the November 8th Mayor and Council meeting.
Motion by Councilmember Hall. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Wilsey. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Item number 2.
Thank you. Item number 2, approval of rezoning request RZ 2021-1495, -12155 and 12165 Etris Road, rezone from RS 30 to RS 12, presented by Ms. Dybel.
This is rezoning request 2021-1495, located at 12155 and 12165 Etris Road. The applicant is requesting a rezoning from RS 30, which is single-family estate, to RS 12, single-family suburban, for the purpose of constructing 27 homes. Some background on this, the applicants submitted their application on April 5th of this year. They had a neighborhood meeting in May, and then they had the Planning Commission meeting in July. During the time frame between May and July, the applicant met with the Edenwild subdivision and has revised their plan and has worked out some different agreements and conditions with the neighborhood behind them. Here's the aerial of the property. The zoning of the property as RS 30. As you can see, the green color behind is the PRD, which is Edenwild subdivision. The yellow color to the north is RS 18. And across Etris Road, the darker green is RS 12 zoning. The comprehensive plan is suburban residential, and the request meets the current 2035 comprehensive plan. And it does comply as stated. The site plan that they indicate shows a 35-foot rear setback for each lot. The lots along the southern boundary range from 14,000 to 18,000. The properties along the eastern range from 14 to 20, and along the northern from 12 to 19. So I'll show that again. Along the northern boundary from 12,000 to 19,000. Along the eastern boundary, 14,000 to 20, and along the southern boundary, 14,000 to 18,000. So, and then the interior lots, most of them are their 12,000 square foot minimum lot size. The Planning Commission did recommend approval at their July meeting with the staff conditions, which was to develop in accordance with the June 23rd site plan and to have a 6-foot sidewalk along the total property frontage along Etris Road. They also indicated that the owner-developer shall meet the intent of the negotiated conditions discussed with the surrounding neighborhood. So the applicant, as stated, has been meeting with the Edenwild subdivision throughout this time frame, and they have come up with a private development agreement with these conditions. I will let the applicant address those conditions before you this evening. Staff does recommend approval with the June 23rd site plan and the 6-foot sidewalk along the total property frontage along Etris Road. Do you have any questions for staff?
Questions for staff from council? Seeing none, we'll hear from the applicant.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, I'm Don Rollator. My business address is 200 Foothills Parkway, Marble Hill, Georgia. I'm tonight here on behalf of the applicant, which is Etris Land LLC, portion of O'Dwyer Properties. Jordan Tinch, who is with the applicant, is here with me, and he will give you some discussion. Simply stated, it's a request to rezone 11 3/4 acres from RS 30 to RS 12 to develop 27 detached single-family homes. Jordan, if you'd like to speak at this point, I'll reserve some time to come back and speak to you when he's through.
Thank you guys very much for having me tonight. My name is Jordan Tinch. I'm the land development manager at O'Dwyer Properties. I live at 14030 Crabapple Lake Drive in Roswell, Georgia. This is actually a very interesting project for myself because, as you heard, I actually live on Etris Road in Roswell. And I've driven by this property for the last couple of years and saw this sign on it and realized it's something that us as a company could do a very good job at. So kind of went forward with that. We came forward with a lot denser plan. Edenwald has 9,000 square foot lots, but through communication with the residents, and hopefully they'll come show their support with that as well, we really tried to work on a good win-win plan for everybody. So with that being said, you may have not heard about O'Dwyer Properties. Again, we are a local home builder. We do semi-custom homes. I actually have some different elevations here, if we can project those, or I'm happy to pass them around. But really what this is going to show is that we don't do kind of a cookie cutter type product. We do a very good range. We do, let's see.
There you go. Keep going.
So I'm just going to flip through some of these real quick just to show you the different type of quality that we bring as a builder. Different looks, and this again continues to bring value to the area. Kind of one thing with O'Dwyer is that we are big on reputation and value. We are one of the few Energy Star certified home builders in the area. And again, that's just going to continue to bring the value for the area. Not only is it important for the company, but as I said, I live in this area. You know, my family goes to these schools, these parks. I'm going to be neighbors with these future homeowners. So again, the product itself is very important. In particular, Mr. O'Dwyer, I'm very proud to work for O'Dwyer Properties. If you guys are familiar with the Drake House, Mr. O'Dwyer headed the building team for that. It is in Roswell, and it's really a charity for single women, mothers trying to get back on their feet. He donated all his time. In 2006, he did the initial construction, and in 2018, I believe he did the renovation for the Drake Village, again, where he donated all of his time, along with the subcontractors, really pushed to donate as much as possible, and that's something that as a company we're very proud of. This project in particular, we've tried to work, as I mentioned, we started with much larger, really worked it down to 27 lots with discussion with the neighbors. As you may have heard in the Planning Commission aspect, you know, they showed good support on that. And that's kind of part of where when we come into a project, we want to work hard with the neighbors to make this a win-win for everybody. We put several conditions together, 9 conditions, Don will show those, really focused on stormwater, landscaping, fencing, and the overall lot layout of the subdivision to make sure it was agreeable to everybody. It took a lot of effort, and I do thank all the homeowners that did come to several meetings to really kind of push that along. And again, we agree 100% with those conditions. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Don for any more discussion.
Get the site plan up for you, and my explanation is much simpler. Thank you, Jackie. Most of the northern boundary of this property is Edenwald subdivision. All of the eastern boundary is Edenwald subdivision. On the south, we have one single-family homeowner who we've been in close touch and negotiation with as well. Across the street is Kingswood subdivision on Etris Road, and it's zoned RS12. The average lot size in this subdivision will be 14,700 square feet, which is much larger than the 12,000 square feet allowed. Etris Road's a very busy road. It contains a school, a church, a shopping center, along with over 1,000 homes close to this development. Applicant proposes to build 27 new homes. He's shown you those. So we answer the question you haven't asked yet. We anticipate the starting point for these home sales will be $700,000. No variances are requested. We listened to the concerns of our neighbors. We had a meeting with them that was in addition to the city scheduled meeting and before Planning Commission. And Jordan was very attentive to their needs, spoke to them carefully, and we worked out an agreement with them, which we will call a private development agreement that is being wrapped up as we speak. There were 9 conditions. Let's go back to this. I'll just put those up there for you so that you can understand. Condition number 3 that the staff has recommended. The staff is recommending that we honor the conditions that we negotiated with the homeowner group. Those signatures are being obtained now. That will be the governing document among us. I believe that it satisfies all of their concerns. A couple of representatives of Edenwald are here tonight to speak to you. The South neighbor may be here. I don't know if Bernie's here or not, but anyway, we took a lot of time, a lot of care. Planning Commission recommended approval unanimously. Candidly, they were astounded. They said, "What happened here?" I said, "Well, Jordan listened to the people that he was neighbors with, and he had a good product to start with. And as a result of that, we've had no upheaval and no upset. We accept the 3 conditions that staff proposes. They exactly reflect what everyone intends to do. So what we'd like to do at this time is close our public presentation, answer any questions that you as a council might have, and reserve any time for rebuttal that may be necessary."
Thank you, Mr. Rollator. Anyone on council have any questions? Council members, Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have a number of questions, so appreciate the presentation, both from staff as well as the applicant. And so first of all, some clarification. It was mentioned that there were 18,000 square foot minimum lots, I believe said, was I understanding correctly, is that the full exterior or is that just the back of the development?
I'm not sure I understand the questions. In RS 12, the minimum is 12,000 square feet. Jordan, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, that was not what
I'll
Ms. Dybel
respond to
said.
that.
Yeah.
So along the south perimeter is 14,000 to 18,000. The lots along the eastern side abutting Edenwild range from 14,000 to 20,000. And then the lots along the northern range from a little over 12 to 19,000. So the perimeter lots are larger than the minimum 12,000.
Okay, so the perimeter lots are larger than 12,000, but many of them are not a full 18,000?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that clarification. Because with it, I certainly am very focused on really the impact to the neighboring communities, both the neighborhood backing up, as well as really keeping the character of the road as well with the RS 18 further down. So it's definitely, given the fact that I think RS 18 makes a lot of sense instead of RS 12. I think it's very important to know that you've worked so much with the residents and the neighbors. So I think that's helpful to know. So that was one question I had. Another question I have is for the applicant. You had mentioned you're one of the few Energy Star certified builders, and can you just help? And you said that creates additional value. You said for the area. Can you help me understand what does that involve for this neighborhood that a non Energy Star certified builder would do?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So when you look at energy certification, you actually have to look at the overall kind of HERS rating of the house. So it's how efficient is this house versus house A versus house B. We actually have to do a number of things. So it involves our furnace systems, our insulation, our windows, our siding aspect. The entire house itself gets basically a 3-step inspection process to make sure that it is Energy Star certified. And again, that is a HERS rating that's above the industry standard right now.
Okay, so not only are you an Energy Star certified builder, but your intention is for all these homes to be Energy Star certified.
That's correct.
Excellent. And if this council chooses to approve the request, would you be comfortable with that being an additional condition in addition to the other ones?
I have no problem with that.
Because I'll tell you let me give my reason for bringing that up is what we have seen a lot over the years is an applicant will come with a rezoning request and they have a lot of just great features and ultimately those don't become conditions and for whatever reason things change, the property gets sold, it's a new developer and you end up having situations where if it wasn't a legal condition then it just doesn't happen. So that's why I'm bringing that question up.
Based on the current standards of Energy Star.
Sir, could you approach this so we can get it on
I'll respond.
microphone?
I'll follow that up. Yeah, just based upon current standards,
Thank
that's
you.
correct. We all know that the energy code may change,
Right.
which is the concern.
And so if I'm hearing you correctly, if the condition included specifically based on current standards, then that's a condition, additional condition you support. And then lastly, and it sounds like from Mr. Rollator, we might hear from the audience, but so I'm hearing that you've you've worked out this agreement with the neighbors and with Eden Wild. And I guess my question is, has there been buy-in? As you're aware, at the very beginning, when this first came forward back in May, there was a lot of opposition and a lot of individuals sharing their concerns. And I think really many of those concerns very legitimate. Has there been buy-in and involvement with those individuals that were most affected?
Yeah, so we actually have talked to every homeowner around that's here, and kind of with your comment about the Edenwald RS-18. So actually, Edenwald itself, being a PUD, has 9,000 square foot minimums, and even this property has 12,000 square foot surrounding certain areas. But with the homeowners, we really try to make sure that the perimeter actually maps what was kind of around the perimeter aspect. And then there was a big concern about stormwater. So we are working on a very good solution with the current homeowners on the stormwater aspect to overall add additional value to their property. And again, the landscaping, this fencing, the screening, I mean, that's something that is going to hold very good value for our future homeowners as well as them as well. Currently, there's a chain link fence with very little vegetation, kind of older housing. So we think this overall elevates the property.
Excellent.
I
That's
think
all.
it's worthy of note, in the agreement, there will be an 8-foot wooden fence there, and there will be additional landscaping just inside the fence to ensure that we get a better than required buffer.
Excellent. I appreciate that. And just to be clear as well, I'm very focused on certainly Eden Wild backing up, as well as the other RS-18 houses that would be right next door going down on the right. But you've answered all of my questions at the moment, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Any further questions from council? Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And this question is actually for David Davidson. The private agreement between the neighbors and the developer, can we incorporate that agreement as a condition, or how do we address that?
So several of the conditions in that agreement could be made conditions. Number 9, I know could not, because that's actually telling them to go work on somebody else's property. We couldn't enforce that. That can be something that they agree to and with the other people, and they could bring an action against them. But some of the other ones, I was reading them just a second ago, could actually be made conditions by this council if you so want.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All right. We'll now ask for comments from the public, and we'll call you back for rebuttal after. Thank you. Anyone in the public like to speak? Yes, sir. Give us your name and address.
Hello, my name is Russell Simmons. I'm at 340 Summershade Lane. My house abuts on the property on the north side, and it's one of the larger lots that will be abutting against the new property. We first started the discussion, there was a lot of pushback about 30 houses, and actually, I think originally it was closer to 40. We negotiated that number down to something that's more reasonable than 27, gives us a reasonable lot size. I've been pretty pleased with the fact that the developer actually came out on the property, out there are people who do the detention pond and all the plumbing and that type of thing, and met with us, because the biggest issue that we have is the water retention on the property. I've invested a lot of money in my property trying to deal with that, and what they've assured us is that there will be no more water that will come onto the property from their subdivision with all the hardscape, and that they would trap all the water on that subdivision, on the new subdivision, and that was a major cause of concern for us. The other issue was privacy, so the 8-foot fence was really helpful, along with the fact that in the plan, they've added some additional trees and vegetation, all the type of thing that we would talk about. The other thing that we were really pleased with was on the detention pond. There's going to be agreement that they'll maintain the detention pond and all the types of things that we were concerned about with, creatures and critters and insects and all the things that come with that. They said they would take care of that. So I've been pretty pleased. My other neighbor, Josh, will talk about going through his property to the head wall to allow for the drainage, but we've worked through most of those items. I think they've done a very good job of talking to the neighbors. I have one of those property agreements that we've negotiated. Haven't quite signed it, but I'm very comfortable with where it's at, and I think it's overall been a pretty reasonable process.
Thank you, sir. If you could fill out a card if you haven't already, that'd be great. All right, thank you. Anyone else in the public like to speak? Sir, if you give us your name and address, please.
So my name is Josh Axton. I'm at 330 Summershade Lane. I'm right next door to Russell. And just want to give my 100% support for the initiative that the developer is going forward. I really can't tell you how refreshing it is to work with somebody who's been very transparent, very easy to work with. I can tell you there's never been a point where we felt bullied or coerced. When we met as a community at the HOA at the clubhouse, we gave them all of our concerns, and they were extremely open-minded to what we had to say and what we needed. And I think what they've created is a very win-win model. They've made a lot of compromises on their side, and I think the 18 abutting houses that are part of this entire endeavor, they feel very comfortable with what was come up with as a solution. Every one of us will benefit from this relationship. So that's about it.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can't come back up. I'm sorry. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? Yes, sir.
So I am Bernie Olszewski. I live at 12145 Etris Road, and that borders the south side. So I've got about 400 feet that will hit this subdivision. And Steve Renfro, who has been our speaker, is not here. I was hoping he would give you the whole scoop, and I would just say I agree, because he was my guy. But I just want to say that Jordan and O'Dwyer Homes have been really easy to work with. Of course, I would rather have one big house there. I realize that not going to happen. And the 8-foot fence that they proposed would be nice, because my house is going to be straight in. I'm going to be looking off to the left. It would be nice to have a large fence. I don't know if you all are going to be able to prove that or not, but if you can, that would be fantastic. Also, since my house is halfway down the lot, Jordan has worked with me on my property and said that X amount of feet in front of my house and X amount of feet behind my house, where I'm going to see folks, they would actually do some additional planting, which I thought was nice. And so I am I'm willing to, I bought a home from Dan O'Dwyer back a long time. Dan, right? Or is it Dan? Sure. All right. Back by one of my first North Point Trace a long time ago. So it kind of full circle back to me, and Jordan's been great to work with. So I am in approval of the rezoning.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the public? All right. Does the applicant have any rebuttal?
Only if there are questions.
Thank you, sir. Back to council for any comments or questions. Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you. So I guess a follow-up question, I'm not sure if this is for the applicant or for staff, but both in the emails as well as from the residents that spoke in support, it was brought up that the water detention was a big topic. And I guess could you just walk me through what the compromise or agreement or just plan around that water detention was?
Yeah, I'll give you the quick version. This property as it sits now sits quite a bit higher than the Summer Shade property. So again, what they're seeing, I think it's about 20 feet, you're seeing water flow all the way from, oddly enough, one side of Edenwild through this property, cascading down the other one. There is no real catch on this property. So they're getting full water flow that direction. So in our initial stormwater design aspect, we had a detention pond sitting back meeting city regulations. And then actually there's a head wall on Mr. Axton's property that we are going to have an easement agreement to actually pipe into it. So our water, as opposed to flowing through, will actually be piped to its endpoint in that aspect. So that really captures the water that was not being captured. It helps treat it based on the Roswell standards, and then it actually pipes it out to kind of go to its final endpoint where it currently goes now.
Excellent. Thank you for reminding me of that. And I guess where I was going with it, is there a specific condition that is addressing this? Is probably a question for staff.
So we have it in ours.
Okay.
And that's kind of where, from Planning Commission, we went back and forth with the staff and Mr. Davison as well about how to handle these conditions. So we actually have a private development agreement with that clearly stated in there.
Excellent. So what was shown on the screen, that was one of the,
That's correct. I believe it was like 4 or 5.
perfect, thank you.
Any other questions, comments for Councilmember Wilsey?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And I just want to say thank you to the neighborhood for being a part of this process. And that's the way these things should work. So I really appreciate your willingness to work with the developer and the developer's willingness to work with you, and even kind of working through some difficult issues, particularly with the stormwater. So I would also like to add, I would also be supportive that if there are conditions in the agreement between the homeowners and the developer, that those could also be included in our approval as well as conditions.
We're 100% agreement with that.
Okay.
We're happy wherever they can go. I know some were concerned about enforceability. But
Right.
again, I'm committed to these 100%.
Sure. Well, I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hall.
I'm ready to get assistance with the motion if Jackie could put those conditions back up. Thank you. So the motion would be that for item number 2, approval of the rezoning request RZ 2021-1495 for 12155 and 12166 Etris Road, rezone RS 30 to RS 12, that we accept the staff recommendations and we add the following conditions. And please help me clarify these as we go through them. Condition number 3, that is part of the neighborhood negotiated conditions, applicant shall install an 8-foot decorative privacy fence along the north, east, and south property lines were noted on the tree plan filed with the city. I don't know if we need, as long as the fence is approved by the city council in that language.
I think it's approved by the city of
City of
Roswell.
Roswell.
Or City of Roswell, okay. The next one is the stormwater, item number 6. Applicant agrees to work with neighbors on the stormwater plan in general compliance with the stormwater concept plan. The next one is to add the Energy Star certified homes to be built. This is a question for you, Ms. Dybel. Do we need to specify the additional setbacks of 35 feet?
No, those were shown on the site plan. So it's already in there related to condition number 1 of staff's.
And then do we have to?
Councilmember Hall, can I jump in before you go further? Councilman, Mr. Davison has something to tell us.
Sorry.
So part of number 6 includes tying into existing head wall outside of their property. You can't make that a condition because they don't necessarily have permission to go to that head wall. The rest of it is okay.
So,
And you
Ms.
can say in general that you would want them to tie into that, but that couldn't be a condition.
Would you have some suggested language of how to state that condition?
I think you could just say the applicant agrees to work with the neighbors on the stormwater plan in general compliance with the stormwater concept plan accepted June 23rd, 2021. Applicant will work with the neighbors on additional stormwater impact reduction. This impact reduction is subject to approval by the city of Roswell and obtaining necessary easements at no expense, and the expense incurred in constructing the improvements being reasonable. It is encouraged that they include a piped outlet to the existing head wall located at 3030 Summer Shade Lane.
So that would be my item, if somebody recorded that, or there's a clarifying question.
There's a tape. Oh, Councilman Palermo.
So I have two clarifying items. One clarifying item is, so there was the condition on these homes being the Energy Star certified, and I don't think the caveat was added that based on today's requirements. So that's one thing for clarifying. And then my other clarifying question is actually based on number 8. So it's my understanding our code does require they have a mandatory homeowners association for the detention pond. However, it's my understanding that our code would not require the HOA have the responsibility for the perimeter fencing, in which case, if my understanding is correct, then I would think we should add a condition based on number 8.
So you are
Councilmember
correct.
Hall.
Well, I'll answer that real quick. You are correct. We do not have anything where the HOA is mandatory in our code that they have to take care of the perimeter fencing. So they can do that? Okay.
So I would propose to add that condition that there be a mandatory homeowners association for the property with responsibility for the detention pond and perimeter fencing.
Is that it?
I have one more question about the landscaping. Do we need to condition that, the additional landscaping, or is that part?
Well, one of the neighbors got up and indicated there'd be additional landscaping. It doesn't, condition number 4 talks about the tree species and everything. Have you added number 4?
I have not added number 4 yet.
I would add number 4.
I will add item number 4. Applicant agrees to review tree species with the adjacent neighbors for their review and reasonable agreement prior to final landscape approval by the city of Roswell. And that's my motion.
Ms. Dibble, you have that?
RS 12 with the staff conditions, which there were 2. On the development agreement, we have numbers 3, 4, 6, and 8. And then we have the new condition of the homes shall be built with Energy Star certified based on the current standards.
And I believe in 6,
No, I'm
it
sorry.
says it was read, but it says encouraged
Yes.
to the head wall, correct?
Yes, and we'll listen to the tape tomorrow morning.
Okay. That's the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Tizer. All in favor? And that passed unanimously. Thank you. Number 3, Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. Item number 3, approval of RZ 2021-2043-323, 329, and 335 Jones Drive rezone, OP Office Park to RS9, single-family small lot, presented by Mr. Turner.
Thank you. Good evening. This is a request to rezone from OP to single-family small lot on Jones. Application was submitted in May of this year. The neighborhood meeting was held in June with the Planning Commission meeting last month. Here's the location of the property. You can see it a few properties south of Atlanta Street. Current zoning is OP. The property to the north, that kind of purplish color, is DX. That's downtown mixed use. That's actually where our historic district starts. The property to the east, that's going to be to your right. It's kind of pink on the screen, a little red. That is RX. To the south is RTH. Those are townhomes. Across from Jones Drive is a civic zone and an RS12, which is actually a church building used by the church to the north there. The property is in the suburban residential, and you can see the outline of the historic district and the expansion to the downtown area of the character area of the 2035 comp plan. But these particular properties, those owned OP, are actually in the suburban residential character area of the 2035 plan. Yeah, the applicant is proposing a zone from OP to RS9 for 7 lots. It does comply with the 2035 comprehensive plan. It is located in the Metropolitan River Corridor and has been through the ARC process. That was approved by you all, the numbers for impervious and clearing in February of this year. site plan of the property. You can see 3 lots to the north, 4 lots to the south, and then the top corner there by the fire turnaround is the location of the stormwater management. On the original plan, there was actually going to be a retaining wall. That was a condition to remove, and they've actually reworked the plan to remove the retaining wall, which will be out of our right-of-way. Here's a landscaping plan showing the general streetscape, trees along the frontage, and shrubs and screening trees around the perimeter of the property. At the Planning Commission meeting, they recommended approval to the May 10th plan. That's the one that shows the retaining wall and has since been updated. The owner developer shall show all ARC and MRPA numbers, that's the impervious, those clearing numbers, on all individual lots for any of the plans, any permits. I would include their plats, LDP, those sort of things. And from Planning Commission, they need to remove that wall, which they have, and that's the plan you have in front of you. So our conditions are to that site plan, that's dated July 21st, and then continuing on with the ARC MRPA numbers, which will need to be shown on any permits or plans submitted to the city. Any questions for staff?
Any questions from council? Seeing none, I hear from the applicant.
Evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. My name is Steve Rowe with AEC, 50 Warm Spring Circle, Roswell, Georgia, and I'm here representing the applicant, Dmitry Kezakov, on the proposed project. Kevin's done a real good job of kind of walking us through, so I was just going to hit some highlights on the site plan and then answer any questions you might have. The plan is going to have 7 lots. It naturally slopes from west to east, draining towards the Roswell Springs condominium subdivision. It would be from your page left to page right is how the natural slope is. We're proposing 7 lots, and in our pre-application meeting, Roswell DOT had asked us to look at the opportunity of connecting this road to Warm Springs Circle, both from an engineering and feasibility standpoint. So we looked at it both from a geometric and grade standpoint. It is feasible, shows that it is possible in the future, but we're not necessarily proposing that, but we're just showing that it can be done in the future if needed. We're proposing to screen the surrounding areas of commercial to the top of the page and the residential to the south, east, and west with our streetscape and landscape material. We're using Rhodey cedars, Nellie Stevens hollies, a lot of evergreens, a lot of robust things that will fill in well. We're currently reviewing the opportunity for do some sustainability type planning within here with some innovative stormwater applications and some things. With it being in the MRPA corridor, we're kind of restricted on land, so we're having to be real strategic with those type of technologies. The house that you see here is not necessarily the house we're going to put on there, but this is the general architectural style we're looking to put on the lots with a fairly very simple, clean lines, looking back towards a historic look, not necessarily historic-like, but something that would take elements that would have seen in Roswell 200 years ago. We think that this use is a good transitional use from the heavy commercial along the Highway 9 corridor back to the residential, and is a good transition between your attached residential to your detached residential, with it being a detached with a little smaller lot than typical. With it meeting the comp plan, we would respectfully request that you application. I can answer any questions or save any time for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Does council have any questions? Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Rowe, we received a couple letters from some of the homeowners in the area in regard to stormwater and runoff and things like that they were concerned about. Can you help us understand how this addresses their concerns?
Okay. I don't know specifically what their concerns are, but our plan right now is where we've got the detention pond in the upper right-hand corner of the site. Just across the property line, there is an inlet head wall that this site naturally drains to. So what we would do is we would have to detain our stormwater, we would have to treat it, we would have to have some runoff reduction under the new stormwater ordinance. So we actually might be sending, or will be sending, less water there in a storm event than goes there today. So if there's 10 CFS going there today, we would only be able to send 9 back towards it. So we'll be doing some runoff reduction, which is part of your code, as well as managing the outflow. We would like to do a direct pipe connection to that head wall, but that would need to be worked out with the landowners next door.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. And does staff agree with the stormwater conclusions?
Yeah, runoff reduction is required to be less than it is now. So when they develop, it will be less, and they have the detention pond that should slow that. The concept plan was approved from stormwater and engineering. So,
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Any more questions? Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So I have a couple questions.
Okay.
So one of them is related to some of the emails we saw. There were some concerns about landscaping, and so here it looks like you have a landscape plan and you're envisioning what you're planning there. But there was comments, and I believe, if I remember correctly, it might have dealt with the time that this property has either been marketed or in the future. And so there was discussion or a comment regarding trying to do certain parts of the landscaping basically sooner than later, and just kind of curious to hear your reaction to that.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure, let me, so it's basically there was a comment or request of just concerns with the length of time the property has either been marketed or marketed in the future. And so basically there was a question regarding, is there the ability for any parts of your landscaping plan to start prior to the building? So basically to do planning.
I think the answer is yes. On some areas, absolutely. When we have the detention pond in place, we would absolutely want to buffer that, at least to the outside residents. Maybe the inside we would leave open so that we could clean it, do any maintenance we needed to do. Along the perimeter as well, with us being in the MERPA corridor, a lot of those areas are going to be technically undisturbed, but we'll go in and enhance the plantings within those areas. So I think there is some opportunity to absolutely do some screening to the outside and to the detention pond.
Excellent. And you actually went where my second question was going. So in looking at this picture, it looks like the detention pond is above ground.
Yes.
In which case, I see the screening on the top of this picture, but on the right side of this picture, it doesn't look like there's screening for the detention pond.
There is on the approved tree plan, which Kevin showed up earlier.
Okay.
The reason I turned it off so you could see it, because if I started throwing all the plants in there, you wouldn't have seen the walls and the different things that we have in that pond. So I did it more for clarity.
Gotcha. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. We did also have some questions as to timeline. What is the expected timeline of all the construction?
And speaking with the owner, if we do get approval tonight, he would want me to start with preliminary platting immediately. Then we would get through that process with your planning commission and then move right into land disturbance permitting. We could break ground as early as spring on this would be my guess.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions for council? All right. We'll bring you back for rebuttal. Do we have any questions comments from the public? Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, sir.
Good evening. My name's Tom Rector, 306 River Glen Drive, Roswell. That's the Riverwalk community that is at the bottom of the screen here, the townhome community. I'm the HOA president, and I represent the 90 families there. We have followed this development for a couple of years, and I was very pleased at the last meeting of the neighborhood meeting that the development that they came with and the plans that they came with are much more acceptable to us as a neighbor. We directly abut this neighborhood, and we were concerned about density and water flow and what was going to be there and so on and so forth, noise, etc. We are totally in support of the new plan. We've had discussions with at that neighborhood meeting with the developer and are confident that the follow-through on the buffer zones and things of that type will happen. So we're very comfortable with the plan and approve it from our standpoint.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your comments.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Janet Russell, and I have lived in my house since 1973, which is about 200 yards from this property. Mr. Rector has the great fortune of living in Riverwalk condominiums, which I helped the developer in the 80s make sure it was nice. I remind them of that because they wanted to put stacked apartments back there, and my little neighborhood tied it up for 10 years in the courts. Because for some, property is a commodity, but for me, property is a responsibility. And we all have a responsibility to take care of our environment. When Dimitri came before us 2 years ago, the plan he had was absolutely horrifically horrible. It was just terrible, and I'm so glad it was turned down. What he has brought now is so nice. We are all so happy with what he's going to do. Now, I know you're shocked because there are some watching who think Janet always says no to everything. Oh, no. Janet says no to what isn't right. Janet has integrity. Janet has a view, an organic view. I invited Dimitri to go and take a look at 3 projects, 2 that were within a quarter of a mile of where we live, so that he could see ideas of what had been done, good and bad. And then I took him to see Simone Du Bois's property up there off Minhinnet, which is totally sustainable, which I happen to love. Solar, no impervious surface for roads, cisterns under the houses. He was very enthusiastic about everything I showed him. Just so you know, our little neighborhood has evolved. The oldest house is from 1840. The little houses that are there now were built in the 1940s or 50s and are about 700 square feet and ready to fall down. They were getaway houses for families who lived in Atlanta, and this was the country. And they came up here to get away from the heat, because there's no air conditioning. I knew those families, and when they died, the kids inherited the houses, and they are literally falling down. I love that he's going to landscape it because we've been looking at overgrown weeds for years and years and years and years. I think it's going to be a really nice project. I would like to never see the road cut through to Warm Springs Circle, because then the Waze would find a way for all those people on East Cobb who want to haul ass down Highway 9 to cut right through there. But I think what he's going to do is nice. It's respectful to the property. It's respectful to the neighborhood. We have 2 Habitat for Humanity houses next to the church. We have a church from 1850 or 1860. We have a house at the end. Oh, at the corner of my street, they just built a house, 5 bedrooms, 5 baths for $1.2 million, and it was sold before it was even half built. Now, you got more money than brains when that happens. However, it's sold, and it's on a tiny little lot. So I think this will be a nice compliment to our neighborhood, and I hope you approve it because everybody likes it. And it's nice that we have someone who's willing to listen to us and do what we ask him to do. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I have a question about stormwater. I live in River Glen
Excuse
Drive.
me, sir. Could you
I'm
give us
sorry.
your name and address, please? Thank you,
Jack
sir.
Arthurton, 315 River Glen Drive. My townhouse faces Lot 7. So I have a question about the stormwater. I understand most of the slope is left to right on this drawing. I'm south of the property. Every time it rains, we have a lot of runoff coming down the hill, down to River Glen Drive. And I can't tell from this if there's something that mitigates the slow down the water that would come off this neighborhood towards us or not. I can't tell from this. I just wonder if anybody knows.
Thank you, sir. We'll ask the applicant to come in as rebuttal and tell us about that. Thank you. Anyone else in the public? All right, we'll go back to the applicant for a quick rebuttal.
Steve Rowe again, 50 Warm Spring Circle. Stormwater will be actually collected from the rooftops and from the road and taken to the detention pond. So we're actually going to be cutting off a lot of the natural drainage that heads south on the sheet. So we'll be able to mitigate that through our detention pond and send it in a more controlled manner to the place where it needs to go, which is a pipe system.
Thank you. Do you have anything else?
No.
All right. Thank you, sir. Back to council. Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have a couple of questions for the applicant, if that's okay. Just some follow-up questions on some of the comments that were made. First of all, can you tell us something, you mentioned some sustainable, green, environmentally friendly features that might be incorporated into the development. So if you could tell us about that, and then also the expected price range.
Right now, the things that we're starting to study are doing some stormwater management under the roads, doing more of a pervious type paving. Again, cisterns or rain gardens for the homes. We haven't gotten into the details of what those are going to be, but Dimitri has met with Simone and has come up with some of these options. Some of them are for the site, some of them for within the actual homes themselves. I know he's talking about solar, talking about some other different types of energy programs that he's looking into. So there's a lot of discussions. Nothing's been decided yet, but we're looking at a lot of options. Oh, price range, sorry. Right now, again, it's a shot in the dark with construction prices and such, but I know if I had, it's probably 750 plus for the homes would be my guess.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments from council? And do we have a motion?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, I'm prepared to make the motion to approve item number 3, approval of RZ 2021-2043, 323, 329, and 335 Jones Drive rezone office park to RS9, single-family lot.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, hold on. We have a second by Councilmember Tizer, but we have a clarifying question by Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you. I just want to confirm that is with all of the conditions stated by, okay, with all these conditions, is that?
Yes, thank you for clarifying that with all of the conditions as noted by staff.
This is your second stand,
Second
Councilmember
stand.
Tizer. Thank you. All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Hall, a second by Councilmember Tizer. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Item number 4, approval of CU 2021-2025, 10887, 10889, 10895 Alpharetta Highway, conditional use for used car sales.
Good evening.
Dana, thank you.
Yes, so we're reviewing CU or conditional use 2021-2025 for 3 address for used car sales. The application originally submitted on April 30th of this year. The neighborhood meeting was conducted June 10th, excuse me. Planning Commission meeting was last month. These properties were originally rezoned in 2015 from CX to CH, so from commercial mixed use to commercial heavy for proposed Kia car land at the time. So if we go to the aerials here, this is from 2021. As you can see, the slabs were demolished, or the buildings where the slabs are now were demolished in 2015, but the Kia car land never set up business. So the existing building at 10889 is proposed to be renovated for the new proposed business. So as you can see, we have commercial heavy as majority of the budding properties zoning districts, along with some commercial mixed use. So to the north is Hollyberry Animal Hospital, to the south is Mountain Motorsports, to the east is Green Lawn Cemetery, and then to the west is the Sprout Shopping Center, and then the Jackson Acura. So just right past Mansell and House, or sorry, yeah. So the properties are located within the Highway 9 Alpharetta Highway Commercial Corridor Character Area in the 2035 Comprehensive Plan. So as I previously stated, they are proposing to reuse the existing building at 10889 for vehicle rental and used car sales. The vehicle rental is a permitted use by right in the commercial heavy zoning. They are only requesting the conditional use for the sale of the used cars. So here's the proposed site plan. So the existing slabs for both vehicle rental and sales parking to the east or to plan right is sales, and then to the west or left side of the plan is for rental. The total combined acreage of the properties is just under 3.5, and then the existing building is just under 25,000 square feet. The applicant is proposing to upgrade the existing streetscape along Alpharetta Highway, as well as installing landscape islands to help screen the cars, from public view. With the proposed landscaping, they will meet 15% landscape open space and 5% outdoor amenity space. So here is the proposed landscape plan. They are providing elms, nettle oaks, Nellie Stevens holly, and various other trees. There are no required neighborhood compatibility buffers for this site. And as I stated, let me just go to this elevation, they are proposing to upgrade the screening. So they're proposing two types. One is with a screening wall that will be 2.5 feet high, and one is with a grade drop. And those are both under 2.2.7 of the UDC as permitted landscape screening strips. They also are proposing evergreen screening to ensure it will screen the parked vehicles all year long. So Planning Commission recommended approval with the following conditions. The first one is actually carried over from the 2015 rezoning approval conditions, which is to remove the non-conforming signs and do a new monument sign. The second is, again, from the 2015 rezoning conditions, which is to do a combination plat prior to the issuance of a land development permit, or LDP. All department comments must be addressed at requisite permit stage. The substantial accordance with the site plan dated June 30th. And then the Planning Commission decided to try to tie the rental and the vehicle sales together. So number 5 is business operations must include simultaneous car leasing and used car sales. So with that stated, staff recommendations tonight is I moved the substantial accordance up to number 1, and then 2 and 3 have been carried forward. Then we have number 4. This is coming directly from fire, some fire comments, which is to remove 5 parking spaces, curb, island, and tree behind the 887 slab, which, if I just go back to the site plan real quick, is that plan left towards Mountain Motorsports. Or to provide a recorded easement for unobstructed access to 10885, which is Mountain Motorsports, that would connect the existing access easement between the 2 addresses. 5 and 6 are basically rewriting that condition number 5 from Planning Commission. So 5 is business licenses for the vehicle and truck rental must be issued before the business license for the used car sales is issued. And then number 6 is no business license for used car sales shall be issued unless a vehicle rental business license has been issued for the same site. Since Planning Commission, we have had some discussions both with legal and the applicant, and we've added 7 and 8 as well. The property shall include the operation of a retail vehicle rental facility and the sales of used vehicles. All used vehicles sold shall be generated from the business's vehicle inventory. And then number 8, no purchased used vehicle may be sold on site other than a trade-in that meets the applicant's fleet standards for sales and rental vehicles.
Thank you, Dana. That was very in-depth. Do we have questions from council? Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. So this is the first time we're seeing 7 and 8. I know we've had a lot of discussion, and you guys were down to the wire getting these, getting this language down. Can you expound on what number 8 means in detail and in practicality?
Yes. So with working with legal, we went back and forth with number 7, and we came about the word purchase. purchasing of used car vehicles and what the word purchase really could mean. And with a trade-in, it depends on your definition of purchase, but it can apply. And so we wanted to ensure that the trade-in is included as part of the business model. However, I have been told by the applicant there's a specific inspection process for those trade-ins for them to even qualify to be sold on the lot. Most often they go to auction, but that's what we're trying to incorporate with that specific condition. Do I need to expand further?
Yes, my specific question is if this is primarily a leasing cars, Enterprise rents cars, and the accommodation is that we would be allowing them as used car dealers sell roughly, I understand, 75 to 100 cars a year at certain mileage rates. Why would they be acquiring vehicles for sale? That's my question.
Mr. Davidson's going to expound on that, please.
Thank you.
I'm going to try. So as a operation that does take trade-ins for the cars that they are selling, we didn't want them to just be able to buy cars and sell cars. So they do take trade-ins for the cars that they are selling. So what we said was if those cars meet the standards that the cars you're selling meet, under a certain mileage, go through all the rigorous, so if somebody traded in a 2021 Mercedes, they might want to turn around and sell that 2021 Mercedes if it met all the standards. We wanted to allow them to do that, but not sell other vehicles that were, a 2003 Sequoia like I have.
Thank you.
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I do want to dive into this and have some questions. So basically, the way I'm reading number 8 is basically it's giving requirements on the vehicles that can be sold on the property. But so I guess my understanding, the way it sounded was the focus is going to be coming from the fleet and really selling those cars. Under this and under, I guess, the business model, does this, I guess this would allow where if I decide I want to sell my Accord, I could just go and just drive up there and I say, and based on this, there's no requirement that it has to be a trade-in. Am I understanding this correctly? That's probably, Mr. Davidson, a question for you.
So we specifically put that no purchased used vehicle may be sold on site other than a trade-in.
Right, but I guess what I'm seeing, if I'm understanding this correctly, is they can advertise purchasing used cars. They just can't sell them on site.
Yeah. So basically, if you had a 2004 Accord and they took it as a trade-in on a new vehicle, my understanding is that they will directly send it to auction and not sell it on their site.
Right, but you've just mentioned a trade-in example. So instead, I just have my Accord that I decide, you know what, I'm just going to carpool with my wife. I want to sell my Accord. I can drive here and just sell it under the current legal condition.
It would have to be a trade-in.
Because I guess help me understand which line is it? Because it says no purchased used vehicle may be sold on site. It doesn't say that they can't just have a part of their business model being buying used cars.
Well, so that's where we got into the purchase definition, because trade-in is a purchase. So we were trying to limit it to only trade-ins and not just buying a car and turn around trying to flip it.
Right, but and so I guess my point here is it doesn't seem to me like this language fully captures the point that the only cars they'd be buying off the street would be ones that are trade-ins. So I guess that's one comment I have. We don't have to solve that this second, certainly.
And the applicant may be able to address that one.
Right, exactly. So that'll be a discussion for the applicant. The other aspect is it looks to me like the last sentence of item number 7 and the full sentence number 8 seem to me like they kind of contradict. Because in number 7, I'm seeing all used vehicles sold shall be generated from the business's vehicle inventory. But then in number 8, we're seeing that vehicles may be sold on site other than a trade-in that meets, so basically it says if it meets the applicant's fleet standards as discussed, so that's just something I think we need to discuss as well. But so those are some initial reactions as I read through the recommended conditions.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo. Any other questions? Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you. Real quick. I think number 8 says, and we'll read it, just make sure I understand it. No purchased used vehicle may be sold on site other than a trade-in that meets the applicant's fleet standards for sales and rental vehicles. So if I drove up there in my vehicle and just wanted to sell it to them, they couldn't turn around and resell it unless I traded it in for another car. Is that the meaning of that, Mr. Davidson?
Well, that's the intent, but I believe Councilmember Palermo is correct that we didn't say that they couldn't just, you could take your car and they could just buy it. They couldn't sell it on their site, but they could just give you cash for it and then send it off to auction if they wanted to. And we didn't address that in number 8.
Councilmember Wilsey.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just looking at the wording of item number 8, I wonder if just by adding a word to describe the trade-in to say trade-in vehicle so that it reads no purchased used vehicle may be sold on site other than a trade-in vehicle that meets the applicant's fleet standards for sales and rental vehicles. I think that helps tie the two items together and makes it pretty clear that it has to be traded in for a vehicle that the facility owns, and it still has to meet the fleet standards. Does that make sense? Just a suggestion for consideration by council.
Thank you. Any other? Councilmember Hall.
Just following up on that statement. So would they ever have any purchased vehicles other than vehicles that they have taken on a trade that we're calling purchased? And perhaps that's a question for the applicant.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns? All right, we'll go to the applicant. Thank you, Dana.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem Council. Steve Rowe with AEC, 50 Warm Springs Circle, here representing Enterprise. I've got Tony Kephart here with me, and can answer some of the operational questions, and if we have any questions on the architecture, Marcus Mello's with me as well. The existing 3.2 acre site, or 3.42 acre site, formerly had 3 buildings. Obviously, the 2 have been removed. The center one had remained, so we're going to use the 2 pads for actual parking area and do an adaptive reuse. What we're asking for is the ability to do used car sales, obviously, with this conditional use. Majority of the business will be the rental side of the business. The left-hand side of the page will be mainly your rental side. Just the right-hand side, which is the much smaller of the 2 sides, will be your car sales side. As a part of this, we're going to be doing a real big improvement to the streetscape. Just kind of running you down Highway 9 going north along the property, showing you the streetscape. So the parking lot comes right up to the right-of-way line. There's no shrubs, very little trees, and just a lot of hardscape through here. The existing building has just been left in disrepair for probably 3 to 4 years, so it's just been kind of slowly aging and degrading in place. The proposed adaptive reuse will reinvigorate the site. We're going to be adding landscape strips along the entire frontage to meet the city's code. We're going to be cutting in tree islands in the existing parking lots to also meet the city's code with tree islands. The old buildings will be used as our parking and areas for the different vehicles. And then we're adding water quality in the lower right-hand side of the sheet, because we do have to replace a small shaded area you see in the middle of the page that the concrete and asphalt just cannot be salvaged. It has to be fully pulled out and redone. But it does fall within the area where we need to do water quality, but not full detention for the site. Some of the proposed landscape material for the site include a nice variety of trees. You've got black gums, nut all oaks, bald cypress in our bioretention area, trident maples, Muskogee crepe myrtles. The shrubs will be Suzanne fringe flowers, sunshine ligustrum, miscanthus, and the design review board has asked us to include some inkberry hollies, which are not shown, but we're going to absolutely pull those into the palette since Mountain Motorsports had those in their proposal. So we're going to go ahead and match those as well. As you can see, the screening will be much better than what's there today. We will have a screen wall along the frontage. The brick of the wall will match the architecture of the building, which I'll show you shortly. Will be fronted with evergreen material so that you'll be able to have 2 layers of screening before you get to the car grills. And on the downslope, we're going to be enhancing the screening. Right now, there's just a straight slope down with really no plant material in there to speak of. This is a picture of the existing building as we propose to improve it. You can see we're going to be adding quite a bit of material, the brick, the ephes, and then adding the signage in the center, giving it a sense of place along the Highway 9 corridor. Just to kind of give you an idea, here's the existing on the right-hand or the left-hand side and what we're proposing on the lower right for the streetscape. This would be in the downslope area towards the northern end of the property. And then I think it just shows a good side-by-side what's there today versus what we're going to turn that building into. So in any way, shape, or form, although it is just a conditional use we're looking for, we're looking to improve the entirety of the property, not just open the doors and set up shop within the existing structure. And at this point, we think it's a great adaptive reuse to allow the used vehicle sales, knowing that the majority of the sales will be only the rental fleet that gets taken off the rental program will be sold here with a few trade-ins that do meet that minor modification. The proposed plan greatly improves the neglected property and building while keeping the corridor and the surrounding uses intact with what's going on there. At this point, I can answer any questions you have, or I can let Tony come up and answer some of the more operational questions that came up earlier.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to hear a little bit about the business plan. At what point do the cars get put for sale? Is there a certain mileage? What that expectation is? How many per year? Just those kinds of details.
I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Kephart, who is with Enterprise and is much more familiar with those type of details than I am.
Thank you.
So, if I get my address, 5206 Creek Walk Circle, Peachtree Corners. So, concerns about the used car into the proposed plan. Our model's unique in that we're a referral-based company when it comes to car sales. So what that means is most of our customers are generated from our other business lines, whether that be our truck division or our car sale division. So when a customer comes in, if you know anything about Enterprise, most people think it's just you go to the airport, you pick up a car, but we're in all the local neighborhoods and communities, and we rent mainly, a large percentage of our customers are replacement cars. So if somebody damages a car and they need a car at the shop or a dealership, we partner locally with those shops and dealers to furnish a rental car. If they need a replacement car, what a great opportunity for us then to solicit to that customer what we offer in terms of our used car prospects. All of our cars, and I think was mentioned earlier through Dana, they're certified, meaning they go through a pretty rigorous process to make sure that they're newer being defined by 1 to sometimes 3 years old, but generally cars that we've circulated out of our fleet, they have low miles. So typically a car for us could have as few as 10,000 miles and as high as 35 or 40. That would be more on the high end. We cycle our cars about every 6 months. Cycling means that's when we buy them. We run them for 6 to 8 months in the rental fleet, and then we turn them over to car sales. What's unique about what we do in car sales is that an element of our fleet we hand sell, which means we go to dealerships across the Georgia landscape, essentially, and they buy our cars used, and then we take a handful of those that are selected to be sold in our car sale locations. And the reason we do that is we generally take the better of the cars because we have all the information on the inventory, and we put them in our car sale division. I think you were asking a question concerning, are we going to purchase a car and not sell it? Was that your question I think you had earlier?
Yes, that was one of the questions.
You know, and I think if there are exceptions to our model, that might be one of them. We rarely buy a car that's not a trade-in. But if we do, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be sold at our car sale division either. We have other avenues to get rid of the car. We might turn around and put it on an auction. And the reason that we might do that is anything that we can do to drive business into the doors of enterprise, that's what we do. But we're also very careful and selective about the cars that we choose to put on our lot. I hope that gives you kind of a brief overview of what we are when it comes to our car sale division.
Thank you.
I've got two quick questions. One, you see a lot of enterprise around Roswell. Could you tell us a little bit about the enterprise's investment in Roswell?
I'll give you a little bit. In terms of what we do from a community standpoint, we're affiliated with United Way. We have a charity, our foundation with our company that's based in St. Louis, and we earmarked about, I think it was $850,000 for Georgia, and some of that fundraising that we do goes to the city of Roswell and other communities like it. We're a philanthropic company in nature. We also use local vendors for generally our janitorial service, body repair. So we're very much ingrained into all of our local communities, and I think that's one of the big selling points of why people like our company.
And you have how many locations in Roswell right now?
5.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we would like to do from a synergy standpoint, which I think would really help the service level of Roswell, is it's difficult sometimes for our customers to figure out which location they're going to, and some of them are a mile apart. And the reason we do that is sometimes we just outgrow our footprint. So we have to open up a new store even when it's not advantageous to do it from a customer standpoint. This location would be great because we've got the space in the room to operate, to increase our service levels, and also possibly take some of the current locations and consolidate them into one.
Great, thank you. And second question is, the used cars, I know previously there's been some concern about cars on the street being sold, up on the street in different locations. Where will the cars for sale be on this lot?
They will be on the north side of the lot. So I think somebody mentioned earlier 75 cars sold a year. That's not the number. I'm not sure where that came from.
I'm sorry, I had mentioned that. I thought I had heard that somewhere.
Yeah, we might keep parked there to sell anywhere between 50 and 85 cars, and we typically try to sell 75 to 100 per month. That's the number.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Councilmember Woolsey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you for being here in the presentation. Couple of questions. Could you please describe, I guess, a little bit more about the day-to-day business operations that will be conducted at this facility, and also the number of employees and kind of, you know, who they are? I know that Enterprise is pretty well known for its training programs, so I would like to hear more about that. So specifically, just a little bit more about the actual business that would be done on this site.
Yeah, so essentially you're going to have 3 business lines that'll be operating out of this facility. Primarily, the rental location is generally the kind of the meat and potatoes of what we do. I think most people know that about us. We'll actually be renting cars out of that facility. A lot of our cars are, and as if you know our model, we deliver cars, we pick people up, we bring them back to our location. Most of our inventory, people are generally very surprised by how efficient we are. So for example, one of the little strip centers where we might have an Enterprise location, you'd be surprised to know we might have a couple hundred units that we run out of that facility, and we might only use 10 parking spots. It blows people away, but the reason and our capabilities are we run at a high occupancy. And when the car's not being utilized, we move it to another location that can utilize it, and that's where we do our fleet sharing. So that's kind of our basis for the car rental. All of our employees that we hire that are full-time that work in our management trainee program that you referenced, they're all college graduates. They're generally pretty good paying jobs with lots of career opportunities. We're certainly proud to boast about that. From a truck standpoint, it's a similar model, except we take the daily rental folks that want to go into our truck division, and we create those opportunities for them. Enterprise is a family-owned, privately held company, and so we're all about creating opportunities for our employees. And that's also kind of what the car sell division, that's where it was born, was about creating an outlet for us to create additional employees for our employees and create another, satisfy another need for our customer base. In the car sell division, that's what that is. It's just a referral-based business. Generally speaking, they're renting a car from us. I think the number is 1 out of 5 customers. And I think this is a very telling number to tell you a little bit about our service and our loyalty. 1 out of 5 customers that we sell a car to have already bought a car from us before, which means they come back. And that number's probably a little understated in that, they don't always tell us they're coming back, right? So it's probably better than that, but I'm giving you the most conservative number in that regard. We're proud of that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you. I actually have one ComDev question, and then I'll have a couple from the business, but I do want to get the ComDev one out of the way. There was one of the conditions that mentioned an LDP, that something would not have, an LDP would not be issued until XYZ, and I just want confirmation. Would this plan definitely require an LDP? And because if not, then I'd want to make sure that condition was adjusted if there was the possibility of no LDP.
Based on what we heard from the applicant, they're going to be replacing, I believe, that gray area that's on the plan, which is going to trigger the LDP, plus the landscaping and the stormwater. So, yes. So there will be an LDP required for this project.
And that's because that gray area is going to have the concrete ultimately replaced? Am I understanding
Yes.
that? For what will go in there? Excellent. Yeah, perfect. And thank you. So that was my question for ComDev. So now my question for the questions for the applicant. I just want to share kind of my thought process. My thought process is I do have the concern with the need and the importance of diversity of businesses. And Roswell does have a lot of used car dealerships. So that's something that I'm very, very cautious and concerned with. That being said, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like there are some unique aspects that makes what you're requesting to bring to Roswell different than than other applications we typically see. And so I guess that's where I kind of want to just explore a little more and just kind of just for understanding, really what's making it more unique. Because the risk that I brought up earlier with actually a different application today on one of the residential ones is we've certainly seen where an applicant comes and they've got a great offering, great plan, et cetera, and things change, the economy changes, whatever it might be. They end up needing to sell the property, but it keeps those zoning requirements, in which case someone else can buy with those zoning requirements that don't have the same intention. So that's just certainly a concern of mine. And so a couple different questions I have is, first off, you mentioned that something that makes you unique is just basically the quality requirements that you have based on age of car, mileage, some of those aspects. And I guess one question I have is are any of those things that you could commit to from this conditional use? For example, committing that only cars that meet this age requirement or this mileage requirement, et cetera, would be sold? Is there anything that works within your business model from that standpoint?
Well, I think, first of all, we acknowledge your concern. I was working with Dana today, and we've been dealing with this for the last few months as we go through this process, knowing that the elephant in the room, that used cars, there's a stigma to it, right? And we understand that, and that's why I like to, I love to have opportunity to get up here and differentiate what we do versus what everybody else does. But we also have a business to run and don't want to, I wouldn't say be hamstrung, but we certainly want opportunities because as we all know, in the world that we live in, change is all around us. And we've done things that we never thought we were going to do, just recently with the pandemic, and then we had the financial crisis of '08, and occasionally you have to adjust your business model. But that never leaves our value system. So I guess to answer your question, I think we're certainly, as an applicant, willing to discuss those things because they're important, and we really see this as a great opportunity. And we're hoping that, you know, you also, as you know, there's enough grace to understand that we're here long-term. We've got a 30-year lease, and the owner's sitting in the back who's owned this property for a good while, who's been a great business owner in the city of Roswell. And we have no intentions of leaving. And if you look at our history, we only generally leave places when we outgrow them. And we're pretty set with what our car sale model is. And we're willing to work with the code as much as we can to prevent that, I guess, fly-by-night company coming in that we all should be concerned about.
Yeah, so I definitely appreciate the sentiment. It's definitely a company with a great reputation and track record. Certainly, I'd feel a lot more comfortable if there was a way to put in some conditions on the unique aspects of the model. But so that was one thing. Another thing I want to bring up is
Projectors, just one moment.
Please.
I think we're not going to operate out of here to sell used cars if we're not also renting cars and have our truck division, which is already zoned correctly. Like those go together. I wouldn't, so we'd be very willing to put that language in there, which I think ours kind of already covers, which pretty much limits anyone else to come in and do what we do, because our model's so unique that way.
And I definitely do acknowledge that is something that makes it more unique. With it, I guess another one, something I've heard from you as well as from Mr. Rowe, is that as I look right here, if I'm looking on the right side of the picture, that smaller area, that's where the used cars will be housed, and whereas in the left side of the building is where the rental.
Yeah.
And is that something that you'd be comfortable with, a condition that the car sales are limited to just that portion of the property?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that,
I mean, the unique nature of what we do, it would be a recipe for disaster to put car sales on one and interchange those. It's just something we don't do at all, ever. So yes.
That's good to know, thank you. And then lastly, just based on the comments as well, the fact that concrete's gonna be pulled up and replaced for the water management, I think that's something that if this council does choose to approve this request, I think that is something that makes sense as an additional condition, because that would help ensure that the water improvement is improving and the look, et cetera, as well as ensuring an LDP is necessary, which is taking care of that condition as well. So those are all my comments at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Palermo. Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you, Councilmember Palermo, for those questions. A question that I had in looking at the elevation that was shown, there was some signage, and I was just curious if that signage is accurate to what's planned, and if the primary signage would be enterprise and not the car sales.
I'm going to turn this over to Marcus.
Okay,
who's
thank
in charge
you.
of that part
Ms.
of it.
Dybel had something to say as well.
Signage is not part of the application.
Right.
Signage is never a part of a zoning or any type of application. Signage is approved by staff. So the sign would have to come through the staff to get an approval. And technically, yes, we can't turn down a sign related to like a logo or a trademark symbol. So, and if it does say car sales, might be a little bit hard for us to turn that down, but as long as it had enterprise on it, which I think we'd prefer to say enterprise, a little bit larger, I think, than the car sales.
Right, I think that's kind of where I was heading, is that, I think the preference would be that the emphasis would be on the brand, not the car sales.
Correct.
So, right.
Mr. Mallow, you got anything to say?
No, she just said
All
it.
good,
I was
thank you.
gonna say.
All right. Just didn't want you to feel left out. All right, anybody else up here before we go to the public? Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. This is a question for Mr. Davidson. If we're looking at conditions on where the cars for sale are located, are we able to condition a certain amount of vehicles that can be presented, or?
You could, absolutely. How many that are for sale on the lot? Is that what
Yes.
you're saying? I think you could put a limit on the number of cars that are for sale on the lot, if that was the wish of this council.
Thank you.
Would you like to address that real quick? Sure.
Question, and I think it goes back to an earlier question, if we were going to be able to, or would we ever see car sales moving to the other side and interchanging those? And there's a limited amount of space on that north side of the lot. So we're very comfortable in saying whatever that space is what that space is. And I think the way we have it potentially outlined in stripe, which is still a work in progress, it can't be any really more than 100 units over there, ever, at any one time. And that would probably be max for us, just to be able to flow around and get where we need to go.
Thank you. Anything else from council before we go to the public? All right, anybody in the public have something to say? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Barbara Flam. I live at 11200 Hembry Springs Drive in Roswell, close to this area. Oh, can I just grab my glass? Sorry. First of all, 100 cars is a lot of cars, if that's going to be their maximum amount. And I wanted to know if this is going to be a hub for all the enterprise rental cars to drop off their fleet cars for sale. Is this going to be the regional area for car sales, is one of my questions. The other question is, are they going to allow the heavy trucks to be sold here as well? And regarding the streetscape, if you notice on Alpharetta Highway, there's not a lot of planting when trees are planted. There's power lines. I don't know if you could pull up that picture of Alpharetta Highway. You see the power lines? So when trees get planted, as they are over at the Acura or the Infinity place, they grow into the power lines, and then whoever Roswell hires to trim these trees have no experience, and they get butchered every fall or every spring. And it's the most unsightly thing on that particular corner where Infinity is, plus in a lot of places in Roswell. It's one of my pet peeves as I drive around this city, is to see how you butcher these trees around these power lines when they shouldn't have been planted there in the first place. Or they should be planted a distance away from the power line so in the 20 years when they grow up, they don't get butchered. And I hope that can be considered in the planning of the streetscape and a little forethought, since, you know, it's going to be 30 years that they're proposing to live there. So I'd like to read a statement. I've emailed you all, and this is part of my email, but I'd like it in the record. Basically, here we go again on code variance requests. Council grants so many variances, and we wonder why we even have a UDC code, but in my opinion, is to keep development in check in Roswell, to carefully and deliberately make sure our town is run by its citizens and not taken over by developers. However, from my point of view, and with all due respect, council continues to be short-sighted on any major commercial development in Roswell. Even Canton Street has gone from nice shops and some restaurants to entirely restaurants. Crabapple Road is now Mega Church Row. So as Councilman Palermo referred to earlier, we're looking for commercial diversity, and I personally have not seen it. And Mayor Henry is not here, but Mayor and Council have expressed many times in the past the need for Class A commercial development along Alpharetta Highway. Little progress has been made in that regard. Sun Valley is a great example of a bad plan that has yet to be redeemed. I stand with many Roswell residents, especially those of us who live in this part of town, who are waiting for the city to pay more attention to properly developing the North Roswell area. East Roswell is waiting too, but that's for another day. Anyone who's lived in Roswell for any length of time knows the monopoly car dealerships have on Alpharetta Highway, the so-called grandfather deals that have kept this part of Roswell overpopulated for decades, with car dealerships and all the associated industries. I'm not sure if you're aware, but if you go between Holcomb Bridge Road and Upper Hembry, there are up to 50 auto-related businesses in that 2-mile stretch. That doesn't include the gas stations or the empty lots at Burger King and Andretti where used cars are now allowed to park. I'm just asking the city to stop and think about the 30-year plan in this part of town. And from my understanding, they are asking for a 30-year lease. That's a long time. That's a long commitment to a used car lot. It's insane. They have 5 stores in Roswell. All of them on Alpharetta Highway, or majority, 3 of them at least are on Alpharetta Highway. When Mountain Motorsports went before council and planning committee requesting variances, they wanted to move the lot to the next one in question. At that time, I came up and opposed that, and council and planning commission agreed they would never be a future auto dealer, car rental dealer, or used car dealer ever on that lot. I couldn't believe you guys did that, and I was so proud. This request was approved at the time, and that made me think council gave pause to what was going on in this area being developed, and I just hope you have that same consideration tonight. There have been many townhome developments built in the area in the past few years, along with the Sun Valley Apartments. These residents need walkable retail groceries and restaurants. North Roswell could be a destination part of town if Planning Commission would give it more forethought before allowing development that no longer fits the characteristics of this area. The last thing Alpharetta Highway needs is another 3 acres of cars and car dealers. We would like fine dining, nice shops, and retail fitting the neighborhood that has become very residential, even if it's on a commercial corridor. The new residents here deserve more than auto dealers. The Planning Commission always working on walkability designs throughout Roswell, including this area, and I live in this area. I would love to walk to a nice restaurant, a music venue, or maybe an art gallery. There are none in this area. I have no use for rental cars.
Wrap up a little bit? Thank you.
All right. So I would like in a minimum to have the questions I had asked earlier to be answered. And I appreciate you listening to me, and I hope that council will take really good thought into approving this 30-year request. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else in the, yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Janet Russell. It hasn't changed since the last time I was up here, and neither has my address nor the length of time I've been here. As you know, I've been in the tourism and hospitality industry for over 40 years, so this is my playground. I know about enterprise cars. No, they did not pay me to be here, but I have rented many, many rental cars for my clients all over, or wherever enterprise is. You know, we get used to looking at the wallpaper of our lives as we drive up and down the road, and this building has been like something from Beirut after the explosion last year. It's hideous, it's horrible, it's eye trash. It's time we clean it up, but we have to be realistic. What are you gonna put in there? Yeah, let's put in a Michelin-starred restaurant overlooking Highway 9. Yeah, right. This is an appropriate place to put this. They're gonna consolidate 4 pieces of property that would otherwise would be a bunch of junk built, if anything. They're going to sell cars, and they're going to rent cars. And I personally think it's an appropriate use for this piece of property because up and down you've got Honda Carland, which has been there 47 years now. That's a long-term business in town. You have the Mazda dealership just down the road, 20 years in the same location. This is not part of our town where tourism happens. Sure, we'd all like to walk to stuff. I live in the historic district. I can't walk anywhere. There's nothing to walk to, and when you get there, it's dark. For those of you who are concerned about the cars and the visibility from the street, I'd like to call your attention to the corner of Highway 9 and Hill Street, where there have been 31 cars parked that are leftovers from the car repair store across the street, and they are for sale. And it is not a used car lot. They're just for sale. And if you go down Highway 9 to where Mrs. Winters and Wendy's and Long John Silver's used to be, in November of 2019, I went to code enforcement and filed a complaint because there were over 300 cars parked in the lots of those empty buildings. And one of them was parked on the sidewalk, not on the curb, covering the sidewalk where people walk, and I thought, what the heck is that about? I went in, the buildings are padlocked shut with rusted locks. It took them 1.5 years to get rid of one set of cars that belonged to the car dealership next to them. They are not licensed as car lots, and you're worried about enterprise that really is a car dealership or a car lot when we've got stuff that's, ComDev showed these buildings as vacant. Vacant. And they had 300 cars. And nobody, you know what happens? People drive and they go, it must be another car lot. What the hell? We don't know if it's legal, but hey, it's there, so what the heck? You know Roswell. And that's between Holcomb Bridge and Norcross Street. There are 26, by the way. So I think you're belaboring the point. This is going to be nice. That building is a piece of junk. If a bomb fell on it, we'd be lucky. As far as the power lines go, Georgia Power hires people to trim those branches. You know, I'm riding your ass all the time, but Roswell doesn't trim the branches around the Georgia Power lines. Georgia Power's responsible for that. So we're going to get Roswell off the hook on that one, folks, for the record. Now, they may butcher them, but contact Georgia Power. That's not a Roswell problem. We got enough problems in this city. So I would hope that you would enthusiastically welcome this business. Don't forget, people, they're going to consolidate all those little mishmashy little enterprise places that are around town. And when they do, they're going to bring more people to this town who will also pass by our restaurants, our historic homes, our parks, and our shops, and they will stop and give us business. Tourism is the single largest generator of income in the world today, even in the downturn. That's why everybody's crying right now with the pandemic, because we're losing our shirts. You want to know the effects of hospitality and tourism? Look what's happened in the last 1.5 years. Be glad they're willing to step up to the plate and come to Roswell. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And you are correct on the power lines. The power company does cut those trees. Anyone else in the audience care to speak? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Sue Dupart. I live at 500 Shadowwood Court, and I know that the insurance companies are contracting with the collision places. And I was wondering if they have a contract agreement just where Highway 9 south of Holcomb Bridge, that Classic Collision, you know, changed names from the edge. And I'm not a professional trained to read the map, but I was wondering if there was more than one curb cut, because I'm imagining there might be an enterprise van transporting people leasing a car from the drop-off point of their car. And then when you think of the 18-wheeler, bringing the cars in delivery, and if there's only one entrance and it's going to be lined up across from the shopping center with Sprouts, which is maybe only a block from another light, and just the placement of state route lights, how many entrances it's going to have is my question, and that they are contracting with car repair places, that the insurance guides the victim of the car accident, who the covered insured person's contract is for leasing a car and body work. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else in the audience? All right, rebuttal from the applicant.
Good evening, Steve Rowe, AEC again. I'll answer the two questions that were related to site plans, and then I'll let Mr. Kephart answer the other two operations. With regards to the trees, we specifically chose the smaller crepe myrtles to run along that area under the power lines. They're actually pulled out from under the power lines. If I were to plant them today, they'd have to be, but since we're expanding that landscape strip onto our own property, I'm able to pull those out, and we'll put in a tree species that will be both, you know, easier to maintain at a lower height and much more able to prune and keep in check, so that Georgia Power won't have to trim our trees for us. With regards to curb cuts, there are 3 existing curb cuts on the property along Highway 9. We're planning to maintain all 3 of those. Obviously, good, better ingress and egress, and we just want to have opportunities for people to come in and out, whether they're coming in left or right. There is that center turn lane, so there's plenty of opportunity to get in and out, and I don't think there's going to be any jams between the properties.
So I'll address the 3 questions. So as far as selling trucks and commercial trucks, we won't do that from this location?
Sir, can you, just so we can
Sorry.
get it on the,
I'm sorry.
no worries.
Yeah, we don't sell commercial trucks in our car sale division, and we won't sell them from the rental or the truck location that's there. So most of what we do from a commercial truck standpoint isn't your traditional truck like you think of it as it might be. It's cargo vans and light duty trucks. Light duty being a Ford 250 or 350. That represents probably 80% of what we do. As far as a regional car sales location, no, that's not what this will be, and it's a fair question, but we still have locations in Marietta, Duluth, and Morrow, and we're looking elsewhere for just car sale locations. This will be our only multi-business line location that we have that will fit all three business lines. And I think the last question was talking about the curb cuts. I think, and I'm so glad that got brought up, part of our model, which is unique, is we don't use 18-wheel trucks to deliver our cars. We actually hire part-time retiree drivers to move our cars from locations, and that's how we get our cars from location to location, whether that's in our truck division, our car rental division, or our car sale division. Very unique. So you won't see an 18-wheeler taking up the center line on Highway 9. That won't happen.
Thank you, sir. Back to council. Councilman Palermo.
Thank you. Heard a lot of good points from all the speakers and appreciate it. One of my items the applicant has addressed, because I think the trees and the power lines is relevant there, and it's something that the applicant is taking into account in how they plant. So I appreciated that being brought up. Another item, and it was going to be an added condition, which I still lean towards thinking would be important, is the truck. So thank you for educating me on Enterprise's model, which is great, because a major complaint that we do get in Roswell is when those 18-wheelers are taking up the space on Alpharetta Highway or anywhere that they're located. It creates safety concern, creates traffic, creates issues, and basically, it's my understanding, is actually a violation of our laws, but they're still doing them. So I guess I'll ask: would there be a concern with the condition that no 18-wheelers dropping off or picking up would be parked in any right of way? Okay, so that's the question I had. And then my last question is for staff. So remind me, is there a condition, so it's currently 4 separate parcels? Is this turning into one single parcel? Yes. Okay. And, okay, so that's relevant, just because I see, as I look at the parcel map, basically it sounds like there'd be a condition that I was going to say the 2 parcels north of the building, but because it'd be one parcel, I think it would just be important to say basically north of the building, it would be the only place where sales, cars for sale could go, or something along those lines. But those were all of my follow-up questions and comments.
All right, Councilmember Tizer.
Closer. Thank you. I came in tonight on this one without really a predetermined thought on how I felt about it. But I have to give Ms. Russell credit for convincing me what should be done here. And one of my concerns after hearing that is that we don't condition a good business out of existence. I'm fine with a condition, as is the applicant has indicated, that the car sales are on the right, that the concrete has to be moved out, because those are things that the applicant's fine doing. But I would caution us to be careful on what's a good business and a good business model for what has been a difficult place to do anything else in. Since the owner of the building is here, I don't want to make any bad things about his building, but it's something that we really need to do some work on. So, I have to agree that I'll be supportive of this tonight. I can support the condition of cars on the right-hand side, and I can support the concrete move-out condition.
Thank you, Councilmember Tizer. Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. This is actually another question for the applicant. If you're walking down the sidewalk and looking at the north lot where the used cars are going to be and the south lot where you have your rental cars, is there going to be any kind of distinction between those two type of vehicles that an observer would notice? How would somebody know that one was for sale and one was for rent?
That's a great question. We do have stickers on the windows that gives, because our model is the no haggle price, right? CarMax took that from us, if you were wondering. So there'll be a price and there'll be whatever warranties left on the car, and that's typically it. The signage, I guess, will be there as well. Not anything that's going to be, you know, it's too disruptive. Like, I know that would be a concern. There's not going to be any flags or people spinning signs, but it'll be, as Steve put it up there, kind of very vanilla and with separate storefronts, which I think is super important too, where the car sales will be on the north side and then the truck and the rental will be on the south side. So I think it's mainly just going to be stickers and signage.
Thank you.
Anything else from council? All right. Do we have a motion?
Okay, I'm ready to make a motion. I think I might need some help on a couple of these conditions. I will motion that we approve item number 4, CU 2021-25, 10887, 10889, 10895 Alpharetta Highway, with the conditional use for used car sales, with all of the conditions as staff has indicated. However, number 8, Councilmember Wilsey provided some updated language for that. Did we trade in vehicle to be added to that language? That the used cars are situated on the north lot, or I'm sorry, let me clarify that the cars for sale are situated on the north lot. I am unclear about the concrete that we were discussing. If somebody could clarify that.
I believe that was Councilmember Palermo.
Yes, so I was thinking something along the lines of there'd be the condition that the concrete in the plan would be replaced, ensuring that an LDP is required. That was my thought process. My question is, A, for staff and legal, does that work? And B, does that work for the applicant, or do you have other suggested language around that?
Well, you probably need to say which concrete.
So if we go to the plan,
There's a shaded area that we intended on, that's part of the stormwater management approval. So that may be, so if you reference the approved stormwater management plan, that would trigger us to have to go for an LDP.
okay, and so I guess the condition would just be ensuring, I guess, what's the best way to clarify that as a one sentence?
That the required concrete replacement would trigger the need for a land disturbance permit.
I would accept that.
So I go with staff. Thank you.
And the additional condition of no 18-wheelers parked in the right-of-way, would we, this is for Mr. Davidson, do we have to clarify any other types of vehicles, or?
I guess I think the biggest issue is the 18-wheelers, but you could say vehicle delivery or delivery vehicles.
I would like to change that to delivery vehicles in the right-of-way. No, delivery vehicles parked in the right-of-way.
Is that it?
And I think that's it.
All right, do we have any clarifying questions? I knew that. Councilman Palermo.
Thank you. The one clarifying question is just knowing that these will be legal conditions that will all last much longer than all of us, is north lot. I don't know if that's perfectly clear, so I'm wondering would it be more clear if it was just cars for sale must be north of the existing building or something along those lines?
We can change the language to include cars for sale should be north of the existing building.
Got a thumbs up from staff, so, okay.
Okay, I'd modify.
Anything else from up here? All right, do we have a motion? Or we had a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tizer. All in favor? And that passes unanimously. All right, Councilmember Hall, number 5.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Item number 5, approval of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code to Section 12.2, stream buffers, Section 12.2.3, land development. This is the second reading.
Mr. Davison.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by modifying Article 12, Section 12.2, stream buffers. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend Article 12, Section 12.2, stream buffers, Section 12.2.3, land development, letter B, variance procedures, number 1 and number 2 of the Unified Development Code, text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this will be the second reading.
Ms. Dybel.
Yes, this is the second reading. There's background here. This went to committee in April of this year. It was initiated by Mayor and Council on May 10th. The Planning Commission heard this item on June 15th. The first reading was approved by the Mayor and Council at the July 12th meeting. So this is the second reading of this item. When we brought this forward, we were asked to add in some extra language related to the variance, limited to approving just the decks, patios, pools, and retaining walls under 6 feet. So that language has been added. So this will allow for single-family homes when they are requesting a variance to stream buffer for the installation of a pool, deck, patio, and a retaining wall of 6 feet or less. Anything other than that will be required to go to the full Board of Zoning Appeals. And this is the second reading.
Thank you, Ms. Dybel. Any questions from council? Seeing none, anybody in the audience? All right, back to council. Any questions? Clarifying questions? Nope. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve item number 5.
Motion by Councilmember Hall. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Wilsey. All in favor? And that passes unanimously. Councilmember Tizer was not present for this vote. Number 6, Councilmember Hall.
Item number 6, approval of the initiation of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code to Sections 2.2.2, Lot 2.2-8, building setbacks, 2.2.19, residential garage parking, 2.2.20, residential parking location, 3.2.9, townhouse, 4.3.5, townhouse, 5.3.7, townhouse, 6.3.2, townhouse, section 10.1.3, vehicle and bicycle parking, and 14.2, defined terms.
Ms. Dybel.
Yes, this is the initiation of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code for all the sections that were just listed by Councilmember Hall, so I won't relist them. They are up on your screen here. So we'll go through this. We have, this was brought to committee numerous times, and we are finally ready here for initiation. So what this is for some changes to the definitions under lot. We're bringing them forward from the defined term section. We're placing those in section 2.2.2, as you can see on your screen. We're making a change to the building setbacks definition requirement and changing the type of setback definition from primary street to front. As you can see under letter F, we have front property line. We're going to try to keep, what we're trying to do is keep the same wording all the way through. So we're changing the measurement of building setbacks to say front setback and front property instead of the right-of-way. We're adding on the corner lots for the right angle. Oh, and under this section here, we're using the neighborhood compatibility buffer instead of landscape buffer because we use neighborhood compatibility later in the code. Under the townhouse section, we are adding in that townhouses to front, to be allowed to front on a civic space or, and usable for civic purposes to be rear loaded. Garage doors to face the access right-of-way or access easement. The front loading, garage must be a minimum of 20 feet from the front property line. Under the alternative finding section, to indicate that it's an alternative garage door width option. Related to the residential parking location, to remove number 2, which relates to the constitution of the 40%, and that the garage doors must be set back at least 20 feet from the sidewalk. And that we'll get into a little bit later when we get to the charts. This is a section out of 3.2.9 related to townhouse. I used this one. It also covers Articles 4, 5, and 6, since these sections the changes are the same. We're changing the primary street to front, the alley to rear access. We add the end to add in the section related to civic space. Under section 10.1.3, we do have the charts. This section relates to 2.2.19, so this was a lot of discussion during the committee meetings related to the setback for the garage. Should it be 420, which what Roswell has? As you can see from the chart, we have 18 feet, 5 feet, 5 or 22. We have a mixture. So as the committee indicated that they'd like to see this go through moving forward, you wanted to have us bring the charts so you guys can make a determination as what you'd like to see. I also think you wanted to see what Planning Commission recommended. So these charts will be brought forward to all of them as well. The next chart relates to the vehicle and bicycle parking section. Under townhouse, we currently have 1.75 parking spaces per unit plus a half a space for guests, so a total of 2.25. We looked at these other jurisdictions, and as you can see on the chart here, we have the different requirements from the different cities that we took a look at. So once again, you wanted this to be shown to the Planning Commission for them to help determine now what number should be used for the townhouse. Should it be what we have now? Should it be 2? Should it be something different? And I believe that will be discussed with the townhouse while this text amendment is going through the process. We also took a look at the townhouse zoning classifications from all those jurisdictions, what was requested by the committee at the last meeting. So on the screen, I know it's very small. We did take a look at all those. As you can see, Roswell, of course, is at the top. We tried to indicate, especially for cities that you don't normally see and know around the southeast, what some of those different classifications are called. So you can see that, like say Birmingham, they do have some R classifications at the beginning, which we believe will probably be residentially. But the B1 and the B2 and the B3, as you can see, talk about neighborhood business and general business and mixed business, so that you can see that they do also have some in their commercial areas. So we wanted to include this chart to help you get an understanding of the different locations and the different zonings. I have one more page to show you. Unfortunately, every time I put it on the PowerPoint, it was coming up blank. I have no idea why, so give me a second. Don't understand. But downstairs it was fine, but up here it was not. So this is for section 14.2. This is to show that we were moving these definitions and we're putting them into the code in the other locations. Do you have any questions for staff? And this is the initiation. And if approved, it will go to Planning Commission and then back here for first and second reading.
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and Ms. Dibble, thank you to you and all of staff for pulling this together. I know it definitely takes a lot of time, but it's a big impact, and certainly especially for the research you've done regarding the parking aspects and comparing to other cities for all those lists. I think that was very helpful for our discussion. I think it'll be very helpful for Planning Commission. That being said, I do feel, I know we've already spent a good amount of time on this, but the the impact I believe is potentially large, and I do believe it's important that council is spending enough time having full discussion of exactly what's to be accomplished, what are all the different consequences, both positive or negative, et cetera. And as I was looking at it, some things that stuck out to me is, for example, the primary versus changing it from being primary road to front road or whatever it was. That's not just wording. That it's my understanding that does actually have an impact, because primary street is something defined within our code, whereas in front is instead just basically taking out that requirement. I think this council needs to really discuss and fully understand what all those potential impacts are. Another example is, I know some of the aspects are adding definitions, et cetera, but for civic space, that it's my understanding that that's not something that's defined in here, and I'm wondering if it could be a little confusing given, so basically by saying it's just civic space usable for civic purposes. My concern is the fact that we do have civic zonings, and that might not be a major issue, but again, my goal is to make sure there's not confusion for the residents, and again, just really making sure that there's a full discussion on even having some examples of here's what that impact looks like, because I think the last thing we want is ending up with a lot more townhomes that all just have large garages facing main roads, and it's my understanding that is possible with this, and that is a change. And also, one of the things that actually delayed this on why we talked about it longer was it was brought up that there are driveways being built that aren't even big enough to hold to hold a car. And I know that there's the discussion of just here's what other areas do. But again, I think what this council needs to be doing is having the big picture discussion. All right, what do we want to accomplish? What's working well? What's not working well? And I think that's where we need to be having that bigger discussion. So for that reason, my preference would be that we defer it and certainly discuss whether this should be at the next committee meeting or at a work session, and just make sure that we can confidently explain, if any resident asks, what were all the updates that you made to how townhome zonings work, that this entire council can really be able to talk not just about the technical details, well, we made this text amendment, but the big picture of advantages, disadvantages, et cetera.
Thank you, Councilman Palermo. Councilman Tizer.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We've spent a lot of time talking about this one over the last several months. I'm not sure if everybody has been able to make every meeting. Certainly we have a couple people who are not here tonight. There are some things in here that I don't particularly like, but in the interest of compromise, I was willing to move it forward to initiation so the Planning Commission could see it. If it's the wish of this council to defer it or to send it back to committee, that's fine. My hope would be that we could all have that discussion, and I would suggest that perhaps we ask the mayor to have a joint session with the Planning Commission on this, if that's what we choose to do.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, I would be in favor of a deferral to either a September mayor and council meeting or a joint session. If the mayor would call one of those. I really believe that this is our opportunity. These don't accomplish what our goals are, and our goal is to arrive at the best possible product for Roswell. So we have an opportunity to define that product and just write the qualifications for that, instead of trying to kind of monkey wrench this. I feel like we have an opportunity to do better, and I think that's what we need to do.
Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, thank you, and thank you everyone for your comments. I know that we've had many meetings and discussions on this topic, and it's been deferred a couple of times, and we've all come back with some suggestions. I think and I would hope that all of us have a goal of having the highest quality possible residential product for the city, particularly, where townhomes are involved. And, as they're being made conditional use primarily across the city, I think, we want to make sure that we get this right. I'm not quite sure why we haven't been able to, turn over every rock and evaluate every possible detail during the, 5 or 6 months that we've been looking at it. So that does concern me a little bit. There are some things that I would like to continue having a discussion about, just to make sure that we are demanding the highest quality product for our residents. So if it's possible to have a joint session with Planning Commission, I would support that. But this time, I'd like for everyone to be prepared to walk through all the details and help move this forward.
So I can't make that decision this evening. We would have to speak to the mayor, but I would suggest us deferring this upon to discuss with the mayor if she would be willing to have a joint session with Planning Commission, and if not, it would go to the next committee meeting. Anybody else have comments or questions? Nope. Okay. We will go to the public. Anybody else in the public have anything to say? Seeing none, back to council. Councilman Palermo.
Thank you. I appreciate this council's sentiment and willingness to ensure we are going to get it right. And actually, in fact, my thought process and what I'd love to be discussing, hearing from staff and discussing with Planning Commission is really based on Councilmember Wilsey's comments, which I agree with. I think we all agree we want the best possible product for our future residents, current residents, et cetera. And basically, I think it's important to have the discussion. Any updates we're making, let's understand how this is making it where it's an even better, best possible product. So that's what I'd like to see. And it's my understanding too. I don't think it makes a big difference, but this council, with the mayor pro tem here and a vote from council, it's my understanding we do have the ability to call for a special called meeting and with the Planning Commission, which I think is better and more productive to make sure we are meeting with them. But whether this council prefers to just request the mayor schedule it, or this council prefers to go ahead and vote for it tonight, I'm supportive either way. I just appreciate all the compromise tonight.
Thank you, Councilman Palermo. I would prefer to put that in Mayor Henry's hands, because I think she would be amenable to this council's wishes. So do we have a motion?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion that we defer this to the next mayor and council meeting. No. Oh, clarifying question.
Okay.
At what point do you want Mayor Henry to have the opportunity to weigh in on making a...
I think when she returns, she could tell us about creating a work session with Planning Commission. And if not, then my preference would be to send it back to committee, not a next mayor and council meeting, because we'll just be back in the same position we're in this evening.
So we're going to defer this item until Mayor Henry has made a determination on the next steps.
Correct.
That's my motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Tizer. All in favor? That passes unanimously. All right, we will move to Recreation and Parks. Since Councilmember Zapata is not here this evening, Councilman Tizer, could you please possibly read item number 7?
Yes, I can, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Item number 7, approval of text amendments to Article 8.10 Park Police Agency, Article 8.4 Police Protection, and Article 14.2 Regulation of Use of Public Parks of the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances, and directing the interim city administrator or his designee to perform tasks necessary to transfer supervision of the Roswell Park Police from the Department of Recreation, Parks, Historical, and Cultural Affairs Department to the Roswell Police Department and approval of budget amendment 10062 500-08-09-21. This is the second reading.
Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 8, Section 8.10 of the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances regarding Park Police Agency. Now therefore, to accomplish the foregoing, the mayor and council of the City of Roswell, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend the following ordinances. Chapter 8, Health and Public Safety, Article 8.10, Park Police Agency of the Roswell Code of Ordinances is hereby amended by deleting Section 8.10.1, 8.10.2, 8.10.3, 8.10.4, 8.10.5, and 8.10.6. Chapter 8, Health and Public Safety, Article 8.4, Police Protection of the Roswell Code of Ordinances is hereby amended by deleting Section 8.4.1A in its entirety and substituting a new Section 8.4.1A to read as follows, text of which is incorporated herein by reference. And Chapter 14, Recreation and Cultural Affairs, Article 14.2, Regulation of Use of Public Parks of the Roswell Code of Ordinances is hereby amended by deleting Section 14.2.5 in its entirety. This would be the second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. That was a mouthful. Mr. Leatherman.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. As Mr. Davidson said, this is the second reading of an ordinance, and I just, as our community is listening, just want to answer a couple of questions that I know may be out there. But essentially what we're doing with our Park Police Agency is we have a 5-member agency of law enforcement officers that currently report in our department, and we're recommending that we transfer those 5 officers under the supervision of our Roswell Police Department. They currently have the same authority as our Roswell Police Department, but they are supervised under my department. And as we continue to look at efficiencies within our organization, and we've done a number of studies over the last couple of years, really to define how we best provide services into our community, this is one of those recommendations. We're functionally bringing that to you as an ordinance amendment, but we're also requesting a budget amendment to transfer that budget unit over to the police department, which you see here in the second reading, as well as some ancillary authority to our interim city administrator that would allow us just to dissolve that Park Police Agency. We know that there's going to be some administrative tasks with either transferring property that's assigned to that division or potentially dissolving it entirely with the state, and just want to have that latitude that we can continue to move forward with your direction and wishes. With that, be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Mr. Tizer.
Go ahead and go to public. I'll get it in a minute.
Anybody in the public? Back to council. Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you. At the last meeting, I'll just share with you that Director Leatherman was quite upset that nobody asked him any questions. They've worked real hard on this, the 2 departments, to make this change. It's the right thing to do. And so, since there were no other questions, if the Mayor Pro Tem is amenable, I make a motion to approve item number 7.
We have a motion by Councilmember Tizer. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Wilsey. All in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Leatherman and Chief Conroy. All right, last on the agenda, City Attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel litigation and real estate.
Do I have a motion for closure?
Motion to move to closure.
Motion by Councilmember Tizer. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Wilsey. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you, everybody, for coming and watching tonight. We are adjourned.